Good morning and welcome to this week's Church at Home. We're heading towards the 31st Sunday in Ordinary Time, and it's on October 31st. I don't know how often that happens, but exciting for us.
And that is Halloween, and it is the vigil of the great feast of All Saints.
Yeah, so that and All Souls Day on November 2nd. So remember that if you are planning to put in an envelope with people to pray for, names of the dead, for November 2nd, that this is we're coming up on your last chance.
Right. You can do that online on our website now. There's a groovy electronic form to submit there.
Yeah. So this I'm Father Joshua.
Father Michael.
Father Edward. And it's great for us to be here. Father Joshua wants to define for us old people and everybody
myself
today,
included.
Yes. What is DTR?
So in our common language now for kind of the younger generation, there's this thing called DTR when you're in a relationship with someone, and that is to define the relationship. So that's when you start to really, people nowadays, they use words like, oh, I'm just talking with that person, or we're hanging out, and that's when before you DTR, then you're kind of just in this nebulous state where there's not really rules to your relationship. You don't know what you are, whether you're boyfriend, girlfriend, or not, and it's just kind of this nebulous thing. Well, once you have the talk, once you DTR, define the relationship, that's when you start having these rules about who else, like we aren't seeing other people, or we are going to consider each other boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever it is. They set up these rules for themselves. And it's so important to realize, so they started the relationship first, and then the rules came afterwards. Like the affection was growing, and then they just set up some rules. So this is kind of what Moses is doing in our first reading, and Jesus is refining it even more.
Right, recommending it. And the problem with this is maybe in former eras or in all of our lives, both personal, romantic, and religious, we kind of get the DTR. We get the details or the rules of our marriage or our church life, etc., and that can be sometimes a replacement for the affection, the love, and the relationship itself. So
yeah, sometimes we, unfortunately, a lot of us who grew up Catholic, we got the rules first before we got the relationship with Jesus. And so it can get flipped around in our head that the rules are what's most important.
Right. And we took that DMI, that was a Disciple Maker Index, back in the
April.
And Father Joshua was just helping the pastoral council understand this, what these answers to all these questions were. And one of them was, I consider myself to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And amazingly, among the people, not amazingly, it was surprising to me, among the people that weekly are coming to Mass, weekly receiving Holy Communion, confessing their sins on a regular basis in the sacrament of confession, they were at a much lower level of practice. They were considering themselves not to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And so what Father's saying here, and I think what Moses is concerned about, and what the Pharisees, Jesus' friends, and the young man in the gospel today are pointing out to us, is that sometimes we get the details of the relationship, the rules, the law, the sacrifices and oblations. We get those things in front of the cart. So it's a problem.
Yeah, but what's beautiful about the commandment that Jesus gives us, which comes from the Old Testament, Moses had given that same commandment in a different place in Scripture, multiple times actually. And so he's repeating this true commandment and really setting it on a pillar above, or for all of us. But he does that because if you put the affection for the relationship with God first, then all the other rules make sense. The rules don't make any sense if you don't have a relationship. They just become shackles, like stopping you from doing something else or whatever. But that's not what law's purpose is. Law's purpose is to allow us to move freely in love in a relationship. That's what laws in the church are for. I guess maybe that's not always what legal, like, state laws are trying to do. But
Sure. But I think, to your point, that the relationship comes first, and then comes the rules, the law, if you will. That we find that, and you said that the rules make sense when the relationship exists because they help to foster that relationship and help it to, they sustain it, help it to grow, and maybe a real world example to look at is marriage.
Yeah.
Right. The couple has, to use your expression, DTR'd. They've gotten together, they've gotten engaged, they've come to the church, presented themselves for marriage, and now they're asking for, in the sacrament, some kind of framework, some kind of rules that will help to foster their affection, their love, and their unity, their togetherness.
Yeah, and that's what their vows are.
Right.
It's the rules of their relationship. I promise to love you, to care for you in sickness and health, and rich and poor, and all this stuff, right? And for the rest of our lives. And
Right.
it's funny how similar those are. Well, I guess it's divine, right? That those are to the rule that Jesus gives us, this greatest commandment.
Right. And all of this comes from the experience of the people of God in slavery in Egypt. They are liberated. God calls them out of slavery and brings them out of slavery into, and he has them out there on the mountain, and he says to them, I am the Lord your God, and I hold you as a people peculiarly, I can't say that.
No one can say that word.
It's okay.
Peculiarly my own. And so, therefore, you shall not have false gods before me. You shall not take the name of the Lord God in vain, etc. So, this notion of the relationship preceding the rules and the law, and also the rules and the law only make sense if they are fostering the relationship and in relationship to the relationship. I think, though, what we might say is that in certain cases, maybe in citizenship or even in marriage, I can understand that our relationship is struggling. Let's just say, maybe you've had this in your personal relationship. Your affection is waning. You are angry with one another, etc. It's at those times when the rules can become more important than the relationship. Because if affectively you cannot stay in it, for the love of God, at least keep the rules.
Yeah, and the rules, if you really are if you're doing them not as something that chafes against you, but as something that can rebuild, right? So, like, if you go back to your wedding vows after you've been not after breaking them, but after struggling with affection for your partner, and you go back to them, it says, oh, I'm supposed to be putting her first. Oh, I'm supposed to be taking care of her needs. And if we start to do what we actually promised, or in the Old Testament, like feeding the widow and the orphan, or caring for this, or doing this sacrifice, if we start to really do that with our heart, then it can help us to regrow and deepen that affection.
And we can certainly see this, Father Michael, in the priesthood, right? Sometimes, I'm presuming, presuming you guys are like me, in that sometimes I don't feel the love of God and neighbor in my priestly call. Sometimes my prayer life, sometimes my ministry life is, so I can be, out of whack. However, it's the call to obedience to
and it's the consistency.
Right. Well, and I can't tell you how many times a confessor or a spiritual director has said, go back to the promises you made at ordination. I want you to go pray with them, review those, take a look at the rules, so to speak,
Yeah.
that foster the relationship that you have with God in ordination.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we all have to live with this, and thank God, because this is the way God relates to us in our human condition, which is fundamentally broken, but it is also fundamentally good. And so I think this call to DTR, let's detail the relationship, is a great reminder for all of us to not only be faithful to the rules that we have taken upon ourselves, but allow the rules to keep us faithful to the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right?
Thank you for joining
you.
us.
Yeah. Peace.